Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, a 27-year veteran of the NYPD. You know, folks, a lot of twists and turns. The NYPD is doing a fantastic job on this case. The big sort of news today was this picture right here that you're seeing. And it turns out that he checked into a hostel on West 103rd Street and Amsterdam Avenue on the Upper West Side using fake ID from New Jersey to book a room. Now, if you're not familiar with youth hostels, they're usually for students and young people that are visiting New York City and other cities from other countries because they need a relatively inexpensive place to stay. So this individual, who right now is unnamed, this is the best picture they have of him right now, where he is actually showing his face. And we get a pretty good idea of what he looks like. We know right away he's a male white, right? He's got very prominent features. He's got sort of a big nose. He's got a pointed jaw. He's got, narrow cheekbones. So if an NYPD department sketch artist wanted to draw a sketch from this, it would be very doable. However, it may not be good enough for facial recognition technology. But now we have remember we talked about reverse engineering this investigation? We know that he came to 54th Street, and we know he dropped off a bicycle in an alleyway on 55th Street. And he got off his bike and he walked, and we saw the video of him shooting Mr. Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. Now, when we talk about after this dirty deed was done, now they have to do what's called a reverse sort of engineering. Where did he come from? And there was information yesterday that at 0500 hours, that's 5 a.m. for you non-military people, 0500 hours, he was seen on the Upper West Side near the Frederick Douglass housing projects, which are also on Amsterdam Avenue, 100th Street, 101st Street, 102nd Street. And we, on this show, I took a wild guess because I used to work in the 2-4 precinct in 1990 through 1997. And I knew of that youth hostel. And sure enough, that's where he stayed. So they tracked him coming out of the park at 85th Street on that bike. And then they surmised that he stayed at that youth hostel. Now, he checks out of the youth hostel on Wednesday. Folks, we're going to get more into all of this new information. But first, hold on to your hats. Hold on to your next door neighbor. Hold on to family members. Hold on to your drink. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now, a word from our sponsor. BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA and college basketball, NHL to UFC. Head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use promo code BLEAV, BELIEVE, for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here. Folks, I'm going to get right into this and introduce our guests right away because I know everyone is chomping at the bit to get into this case. Joining me tonight is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, attorney, all-around good guy. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Mike, welcome.
Bill, good evening. Thank you for asking me on. I appreciate it very much. This is a great case.
It's a pleasure to have you on. And also, I can't believe it. This guy just came out of the woodwork. He's been on this is his third show in 2 days. The cannoli run is over, at least for tonight. We got retired NYPD detective and straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. Whoa, Phil.
How you doing, Billy? Thank you for having me. Like the
Great.
old days, 3 shows in 2 days.
That's right. We're really going to get this out there because this is an interesting case.
Absolutely.
So here, when the NYPD got these pictures out so quickly, all right, there's one of the pictures, of course, with his mask up, not so useful. There he is riding away on his bike. Another picture. And here we have when he was checking into the youth hostel on 103rd Street, they were able to get this photo. Now, Phil, this entails a lot more investigation. Now, Phil, explain to our listeners what the NYPD detectives are going to do with that 103rd Street hostel.
Well, first thing they're going to do is they're going to process the room by crime scene and look for any physical evidence, DNA, fingerprints, things of that nature. Perhaps he used a computer that might be at the location. They're going to want to see if he looked online, checked maybe to see scheduling, if he Googled anything regarding this United Healthcare CEO. And then the fact that his picture is now clear. You got clear pictures of his face that are plastered all over the media. I think that all of the news all day long was showing it with regard to cable news, the local news, and the national news. So I think it's probably already been determined what his identity is. The NYPD hasn't come out saying who he is, but it's my belief that they know exactly who he is. Now it's just a matter of putting hands on him and getting him into custody, since he is a very dangerous individual.
Now, Phil, you know something? I agree with you. I believe he's identified. I just believe they don't know where he is, and they have maybe they haven't put a name. But guess what's probably ringing off the hook? 1-800-577-TIPS, right?
Percent.
Someone out there, and that's that old New York expression, right, coming from 9/11. If you see something, say something. Someone recognizes this guy. Someone knows this guy. The reward's $10,000. People will give up something or give up information for a lot less than $10,000. Mike, he checked out of the hostel on Wednesday. I want you to talk a little bit about where did he go? What type of transportation is he using? And what does that mean from an investigative perspective?
Yeah, Billy, I don't think he's going to risk going to an airport. There's too many checks. You've got the TSA people, as you come in, going through your bag. You got they do the facial recognition software camera for everybody, domestic, international flights. It doesn't matter. You have to have good ID. You can't probably get away with any sort of fake piece of ID from someplace made up in New Jersey. You have to have that passport. You have to have that enhanced state driver's license. They're very picky about that. They're going to go through your bag. So I kind of think that takes away that angle. You and I talked before the show, and I'm thinking perhaps, you run over to Port Authority bus terminal. I've used the bus terminal. It's so easy to get to, and you get pretty much anywhere in the country you want to go. I think that's where he's going to go because he's being hunted. Even if he doesn't have, any DNA on file, even if he doesn't have, fingerprints on file, or the photograph you can't enhance because he's looking down and you can't change it to make it look straight ahead. I think that he knows he's being hunted. He's on the run, and I think he's probably going to he's got someone to help him get out of town by car or bus. That's my best bet. I don't think he's going to risk doing anything else. Even every single cop knows that picture. I mean, even taking the the transit authority, but the train somewhere. I think he'll stay away from that. I think he'll take a bus. That's my guess.
You know, Mike, I agree with you. I think it's a much less riskier to take a bus. I think you can get on the bus in the Port Authority with your backpack. No one's going to torture you. You're not going through a metal detector.
That's right.
I believe he's going to get on a bus. But that doesn't mean NYPD detectives don't have to go to Newark, LaGuardia, and Kennedy Airport and meet with the Port Authority police, have this picture, ask them all about, how do we check? This is the stolen ID he used to check into the youth hostel. Can you check all the manifests of the flights leaving on Wednesday to see if someone with this name got on a flight, any flight? Is there a computer database you could search this name on all the flights that left after? What time did he flee the youth hostel? So let's pick a certain time. Would you run these flights and see if they find out that someone got on a plane using that name from the stolen ID card, the fake ID, then they may be able to marry up this guy to a flight to somewhere. Phil.
Yeah, the minute that we have a decent photograph of this individual, I am certain that they notified the airports, the bus terminals, trains. That would be like the first thing that they would do. Now, if they have an identification, whether it be the fake ID or if they have his true identification, they could query the systems, manifest at the airports. Same thing with the bus terminals. I believe you have to give your name when you're traveling by Greyhound bus over at the Port Authority. So you're going to notify the Port Authority police and the airports, Port Authority police and the bus terminals, any agency, Metro North Police, the NYPD with regard to the transit system. They've circulated this picture throughout all law enforcement agencies in the area. Now, my opinion is if he decided that he was going to stick around, the minute he started to see the media, because this thing was all over the media yesterday, he would probably say, it's time to get out of Dodge. Whether he's a New York resident or not, I would think he would flee. I would be doing an extensive search of the park since he went into the park with the backpack. He may have disposed of the gun. There is video of him exiting the park a little bit later on the bike, I believe around 85th Street. Whether or not he has the gun is really undetermined. I would think if you just shot and killed somebody, you'd want to get rid of the murder weapon. Again, this guy doesn't seem to be a professional to me, so perhaps he did hold on to it. I don't know. There's a lot of things that were besides the photograph of his face, besides the identification. There were so many things left behind that we will be able to develop who this person is. If it's not today with the photographs and the tip line, it'll be tomorrow with DNA or something related to the cell phone, fingerprints. There's just so many things here, a lot of components to this regard to evidence in this investigation.
No, 100%. I want to play this little report from CNN. It gives a pretty good report.
Killing of United Healthcare CEO. Police have released this. Look at this. This new photos coming in showing the suspected gunman unmasked inside a hostel. Looks like he's smiling right there. This in the Upper West Side in New York City. CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller joins us now. This is a big piece of evidence in this investigation, John.
Well, it's a turning point. We have been asking the metaphoric question, who is the man behind the mask? At least we don't know who is the man behind the mask, but we see the face behind the mask now. And, police worked with these images. This is at a youth hostel, which is on the Upper West Side. They were there yesterday, last night, actually searching a room that they believe the gunman stayed in. They believe this is a picture of him. He kept the jacket on and the hood up and the mask up almost at all times, according to people in that hostel. But there was this moment at the front desk in the lobby where the mask came down and you see that smile. And this is so far the only image of his face without a mask, the best image police have. And what they said is, even though it's not quality where you would generate a facial recognition image or something that would bring you to a mugshot if he had a record, what it is it's an image that if you knew him, a coworker, a friend, a family member, you would say, that's so-and-so. And that's why they're releasing it right now. They're trying to speed this up by literally crowdsourcing this clue to the general population.
Yeah, I mean, they clearly need the public's help. help, as it's now been more than 24 hours with this person, the suspect, on the loose. I mean, where do investigators think he is at this point?
All right, these are stupid questions by CNN. How does he know? Look, they're using every investigative technique, every investigative tool at their disposal. A phone was left, I believe, in an alleyway. I mean, it's probably a burner phone, but his DNA, his fingerprints surely could be on it still. They have to process first that cell phone forensically. Apparently, he left a water bottle in Starbucks. That one picture was from Starbucks. And, when we speak about, so many people in this case, and the media has been pushing this narrative, this is a professional hitman. And Phil, you and I both agree, this guy's not a pro. He is absolutely not a pro. What I believe he is he's a corporate terrorist. And for some reason, I don't even know if he had anything against Brian Thompson, the victim in this case. However, Brian Thompson is the CEO of United Healthcare, and that's who he has a problem with. And again, we haven't raised this yet, but on the spent shells that were found on the scene, there was writing on the side of them, and I believe it was deny, defend, depose.
Yep.
I mean, certain news stations reporting different things. To me, that is the work, that is the signature of someone that wants to get caught.
Absolutely, Billy. With the deny, depose, and defend being written on the shell casings, that was a major thing for me, that I kind of categorized him as an anti-insurance company activist, based on the fact that there's a book that was written in 2010 that used almost the same title. I think it was denied, wasn't deposed, and something else, defend, where the insurance companies are denying people health care. People believe that they're entitled to it. Some people get sick and die without the help of the insurance companies. So that's the angle that I think that the NYPD ran with yesterday when they said that they believed they had a motive. Based on those shell casings, I mean, that kind of jumps out at you. That gives you a clear indication of what you believe it is. So is this guy an anti-insurance company activist or a terrorist, like you said, Billy? That's the way it seems to be. That's the direction it seems to be going in. There could be other elements that we don't know just yet, but I'm sure that the NYPD has a very, very good indication of the motive in this case.
I know a lot of you folks in the chat are saying that this is not the same guy. All right. However, the NYPD has determined this is the same guy. All right. So you can argue that, and you're entitled to your own opinion, but the NYPD is telling us this is the same guy.
They're releasing that, and I'm quite certain, and I'm comfortable that that is the same guy. And if you look at that picture, he reminds me of the Prime Minister from Canada, Justin Trudeau. If you look quickly at that photo, that's the kind of a facial impression that I get. He looks like he's in his, I would say, mid to late 20s. I'm sure that they have a height and weight based on, there's so many photographs.
They're saying he's about 5'10". He looks like he's thin, 165 to 180.
Thin build for sure. Thin build.
Yeah.
And I would say, would you agree, guys, that late 20s from that picture?
Yeah, I thought so.
I think, look, I'm not trying to be go against you. I'd say late 20s, early 30s. Just a little bit more of a room to move there. I think he might be in his 30s. But look, this is a good breakthrough. They have his picture. They have so much evidence. Again, forensic evidence takes time to come back. The other thing is fingerprints. Fingerprints on the phone, potentially. Fingerprints on the water bottle, potentially. Fingerprints on the search warrant of the room that he stayed in at the hostel. Now, those fingerprints, once they collect them, they will go into a database called APHIS. And since Mike Geary is a professor, I'll have him explain what APHIS is.
Billy, hey, thank you very much. APHIS is the automatic fingerprint identification system. A lot of people know it when you see that old TV show in Florida, the crime scene guy, CSI Miami, or that sort of thing. It looks like there's a copy machine. You put a fingerprint in there, and it's flashing all over the place, and they come out with a fingerprint of the perp in 5 minutes, and then they and the show's over. No, it's the automatic fingerprint identification system. It's a national database. You got the national database. You got a state database too. In many cases, you got DMV in some states that require like a thumbprint on your driver's license. But it's the national database where if you put in a set of fingerprints, one print, two prints, half a print, whatever you got, you put it in from the crime scene. You get it there. You develop it, and you put it into the system, and you see if there's a match. If there is, of course, no previous fingerprint by this person, then you're not going to get a match. You'll get some similarities with other people, of course, but you're not going to get a match. If you got a really excellent fingerprint from off of a phone or off of some furniture, whatever that he may have touched, and he has a previous fingerprint taken for maybe a security guard license or whatever it happens to be, there's at least, I think, 33 points of comparison that they would look at to determine whether or not that fingerprint is a match. If you have less than 33, say you're down to 20 points of comparison, a detective make the call that, yeah, that is good enough, that it looks like that's the guy. But that's what it is. It's a national database. If we get caught, if we commit a burglary, Bill, Phil, or I commit a burglary, and they get a partial print or at least one good, decent print, they're going to find our fingerprints immediately in the database because we all submitted our fingerprints when we came on the job. But it's a great system, but it really works best if there's a previous sample from this guy for any reason. And it's loaded up into the national database. Again, it could be a security guard license.
Mike, pistol license applicants.
Yes, pistol license. Thank you.
Yeah.
Even to work like as a stockbroker or something like that, you need non-criminal fingerprints.
That's right. So hopefully, there will be something like that. That will be
AFIS. I don't know. I think you have to separately search the fingerprint into a non-criminal fingerprint database. I don't think it's an AFIS. AFIS is criminal.
There's two databases, I think. I think you're right. That sounds about.
Well, let me. This is from ABC News. Good Morning America. Let me play a little bit of this.
Outside a New York City hotel. I want to go back to our senior investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky. Good morning, Aaron.
Good morning, George. He's not in custody yet, but I've just been told police now have a good sense of who the shooter is, and they are still looking for him. He left clues here at the scene, including writings on the very bullets he fired. This morning, a frantic manhunt for the man authorities spotted on this surveillance video shooting and killing Brian Thompson, the CEO of United Healthcare. Police said it was no accident.
Every indication is that this was a premeditated, pre-planned, targeted attack.
The gun appears to have a silencer and jammed. When the shooter cleared it, police say he fired again.
From watching the video, it does seem that he's proficient in the use of firearms, as he was able to clear the malfunctions pretty quickly.
All units be advised in regards to a confirmed male shot in the confines of Midtown North.
Police say it was around 6:45 a.m. Wednesday when the suspect, pictured at a Starbucks before the shooting, gunned down Thompson as he was walking alone into the Hilton for an investors conference. And in new video overnight, the shooter seen here about 20 minutes before the shooting.
They're looking for a male about 5 feet 10 inches in height, cream-colored jacket, black mask, black gloves.
This eyewitness snapping a picture of the suspect as he fled.
I was shocked, and I feared that he could shoot me too.
By the time police arrived, the suspect had run off and hopped a bicycle to get away. Detectives now working to determine whether he had pre-positioned that bike close by. New video overnight showing the suspect pedaling his bike on the Upper West Side. Officers found the 50-year-old insurance executive and father of two collapsed on the sidewalk. Did he have any known enemies or anyone that you've been able to find so far?
We're reaching out to law enforcement in Minnesota, and we're also interviewing his co-workers and family members to see if there have been any specific threats against him in the past.
Investigators say they found shell casings with writing on them, including the words deny, defend, and depose. They also say they found a cell phone, granola bar wrappers, and a water bottle they believe are linked to the shooter. Just spoke to a source, Robin, who says police have now sought a search warrant for a location in the city where they think the suspect may have been staying. And those words on the shell casings, deny, depose, defend, that's leading police to theorize that the suspect may have been angry with either United Healthcare or the insurance industry as a whole. Robin?
All right, Aaron.
So interesting, right? The other thing is, so this report, they didn't actually know at that time that he was staying at this hostel on the Upper West Side. And then they find out that he left there on Wednesday. So what we are obviously conjecturing, Phil, and you said rightly so, a huge search of Central Park, because did he dump that backpack? Did he dump the jacket? Because those are some of the items that are identifiable with him, identifies him. So if he's a smart little criminal, which most of them are not, he'd get rid of that. But people don't like to throw out expensive things. The other thing is that this backpack is a very unique type of backpack. I don't know if you could see a good picture of it there, but apparently the manufacturer of this backpack has contacted the NYPD and told them, that's my backpack. So, Phil, I'm going to lead you right into this. What do detectives now have to do?
They're going to try and find out where these backpacks are sold. And if they have a location close by or even in another state, they're going to try and identify who purchased this backpack recently. Billy, a lot of people are categorizing this guy as a professional. You and I both, and I think Mike as well, we don't see him that he's a professional. Did he go through painstaking things to stalk the individual? He waited. Did he plan this out? Absolutely. He was very methodical about it. I don't see him as a professional. Did he have some proficiency with the firearm? Yes. We'll talk about, I think you have a video to play about the suppressor on the gun, and we'll talk about that, how he racks the gun numerous times, leaving behind evidence, leaving behind those shell casings, both live and expended shell casings. So there's a lot of evidence here. This deny, depose, and defend on the shell casings leads us to believe that he could have a problem with the healthcare industry, right? But it also could be a good cover if you wanted to kill this gentleman, since he does work in the healthcare industry. So we're going to have to get our hands on the perpetrator, figure out who he is, get him into custody, then do a deep dive into the perpetrator, find out who he was talking to, because they have video of him talking on a cell phone. We don't know if it's the cell phone that was found. Perhaps it was another cell phone, but we're going to want to find out who he was talking to, who he was communicating with. Was there emails? Was there text messages? Then I think if he's part of a group, perhaps that an anti-activist group against the insurance company, then I think that motive would be clearer and would become more in focus, that is the in fact motive. But we still don't know for certain. It does look that way. And I think that the detectives are doing a terrific job. They're finding out a lot of information. And I think that reporter alluded to that they believe they know who this guy is. That was early this morning. So I'm still going with that. I think he's identified. They just haven't released it yet.
Phil, it's very interesting. And there's a lot of people in the chat, surely, that know a lot more about firearms than I do. And a big thing was, did the gun have what's called a suppressor, as most people would call it, a silencer? And we have a short video here where the guy doing this demonstration explains it pretty well of what this shooter had. Let me play this on the screen.
We're going to do a little bit of a demonstration. First, I'm going to shoot a Glock 19 Gen 5 that has our SLD switch installed. I'm going to fire one round unsuppressed. We're going to use our Hush Puppy 158 grain load specifically designed for this system. And then we'll throw the suppressor on and fire suppressed and with the switch. So first shot unsuppressed. All right, so now we have the Hush Puppy Project Model 2 suppressor installed on the gun. 2 shots. First one suppressed with slide cycling. Second shot, I'm going to engage the SLD switch with no slide cycle so you guys can hear the difference. Here with that, no hearing protection required. Slide is completely locked, no cycling sound at all, and we're retaining the brass. There you go. Hush Puppy Project. Go check it out.
Interesting. So that sort of amazing how silent that last shot was.
Yes.
You could hardly hear that. But, you know, Phil, we discussed this off the air. Many times a shooter wants that loud boom because it sort of disorients the crowd. It disorients any people around there, and it scares the shit out of people. And what do people do when they hear shots fired? They
Run.
hit the ground.
Yeah.
So they're not looking up. They're not looking to see who was the source of that shots fired. So the fact that he used the suppressor, I mean, again, you and I, the media loves saying this was a professional hitman. No, it was not. If you see the way, look, he had some proficiency with firearms, yet if you look at his stance, he doesn't have a combat stance. We're trained to shoot in a combat style. Police across this nation are. We're also trained to shoot with two hands on the gun. He had one hand on the gun. Yes, Phil, comments.
Yeah, real quick, I want to explain about the way an automatic firearm works. That was a Glock 9mm, which I own. And when you fire around, you rack a round into the chamber. When you pull the trigger, the cycle of the firearm, the slide pulls and ejects the shell casing that now has no bullet in it, and it reloads from the clip a new round into it. What he did was when he put the suppressor on, he fired it with the suppressor. It was kind of low, but he locked the slide where the slide is not going to cycle and eject a round and load a new round. Much quieter, much less recoil, I believe, too. So when the slide opens, you hear more of the explosion as the slide is going back and ejecting the round and loading the new round. You hear the explosion. So that right there shows why he immediately, if you look at the video, and the video is widely available in the media, the minute he fires the first shot, he's grabbing the gun and he's trying to cycle another round into the chamber. Right there, that's a perfect shot of it. So that tells me that he knew what he was doing with the suppressor. He knew that the slide was going to lock, and perhaps it looks like it actually did cycle. So he may have kind of jammed it, but he managed to get it free. He fires the second shot, then he fires the third shot. Now, with regard to him being a professional assassin, I would think he would have gotten closer and he would have tried to, what we call a coup de grace, is to make sure that the individual has been shot. Go up close, and usually, I hate to even say this, but they shoot the person in the head. He seems to have panicked a little at the end. Trouble with the gun. He fired, got 3 shots off. He saw he was down, and he crossed the street. Now, some people were challenging me today saying, well, that's not panic. He was so cool as a cucumber, things of that nature. Yes, he was cool, but I don't think he was as cool as a cucumber. Bill, you and I talked about it earlier today. There's a famous scene in The Godfather where Clemenza is teaching Michael about the gun that he's going to execute the police captain and the other gangster. And he says, this gun is real loud. It'll scare off any pain in the ass witnesses. That's what me and you were getting at earlier today. I don't know why he chose to do that. Somebody hears a loud shot or numerous shots. Like you said, they're going to hit the deck, or they're going to hightail it out of there. He chose to go with the silencer. Perhaps he knew a little bit about it, and he thought he was James Bond or something.
You know, Phil, as you know, and I know you did too, I did 6.5 years in anti-crime, which is plain clothes. I did 3.5 as a police officer and 3 years as a sergeant. That included street crime. And one of the biggest things that raises up anti-crime officers is someone running. And it's not just that they're running, because people frequently in the city will run for a bus, run for a cab. It's how they're running. And we used to say, he's running, or he's booking, right? If someone's running or booking, they just did something because they're also looking back over their shoulder to see who's chasing them. So as far as him walking away calmly, he knew about that. He knew that what would raise up the police would be someone running. So he calmly walked away, and he had prepared, because he had his bicycle, his e-bike, which we also found out it was not a city bike. It was just a regular e-bike, which he had left in an alleyway, and he got on that bike, went the 5 blocks to Central Park, entered Central Park at Central Park South, drove up along, I guess, the West Drive, and exited the park at 85th Street, got out at some point and went westbound on 85th Street, and that's where they caught him on video. So yes, everything he did was planned, but that doesn't make him, KGB or MI6. It just says that he planned this. So, which leads us to believe, yes, he's an angry guy. He's angry at this company, United Healthcare. And I will be the first one to say, we see a lot of people in the chat, there's been some scandal in this company. They have denied people coverage. Could he have himself or a family member that was denied coverage and it ruined their life because they had to spend their life savings instead of being covered by an insurance company? In addition, the top people in this company had just sold a huge amount of stock because they knew they were being investigated. So once that came out, the stock would plummet. But they knew it
did. It plummeted like 5% in one day.
They got rid of it before that happened. Yep. So that's something you could get killed for too. And that's something obviously that would bring some shame on the company. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, as you guys talk about it, and we've gone over this with Bobby Chacon, and I've been reading as much as I possibly can, I kind of equate this in a way with this anger towards health insurance. I kind of equate it towards about a decade ago. I remember there was a doctor who performed abortions, and the doctor was gunned down outside the office or something in the early morning hours. And it was, this person who was the gunman felt very righteous in what they were doing. And they were part of a group that, were really like guerrilla in their mentality towards these doctors. And so I have a strange feeling that this guy, he may be part of a small group that's very vociferous, very loud, and that may have been threatening people in the past in the insurance companies. And I think he did have some help. This wasn't a huge conspiracy like a KGB sort of thing or CIA sort of thing, but he did actually was talking to somebody on the phone. So we know he had somebody else that was giving him some advice or whatever he was doing, giving him some succor, some support. He had that bike stashed. He probably had help getting, Thompson's itinerary. So that's a lot of inside work. So I think he's part of a small group that has it in for health executives. And I think that's, most likely his name or his likeness will pop up somewhere, maybe after we get him and we start going back and looking back on what he's been doing. But I think he is part of a small organized group. And this is a guy that was targeted. Maybe not this particular guy was targeted for anything that Mr. Thompson did, but this may be a kind of a call to action by some small group of people who want to take on the healthcare industry in their own mind, that they're doing something good for the people of America. But he's not a pro, but he had some help with this. Absolutely.
Mike, hold that thought because we're going to get back to it. John Donahue from the chat, thank you so much for the 1999 super sticker. His face was exposed in one of the photos. Yeah, John, we did show that photo in which his face was exposed. Here it is right here. Some people in the chat are saying it's not the same guy. According to the NYPD, this is the same guy. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories, true crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, then you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, you see that red button on the screen? Just hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, share us with your friends and your family, your grandmother, your grandfather, everyone, the entire family, share us with. Also, if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels. We also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. And we have such great supportive fans as part of the Police Off the Cuff family. Claudia Lanzestoffer, I didn't forget you. Thank you so much for gifting a Police Off the Cuff membership to some lucky individual. We really appreciate that. That's very generous of you. Phil, about as far as him being part of some little corporate terrorist organization, that's a real possibility. So that, to me, screams 3 letters, FBI, and because they know and they track these corporate terrorist organizations. Of course, the FBI should be brought into this investigation. I don't know if the NYPD has enlisted their help, but this is, full court press, as they used to say in the NYPD when I was on it. This is a full court press. Overtime caps are out the window. You can do 150 hours on this case, but then next month you can only make 10 hours. Believe it or not, that's the way the NYPD works. But full court press, throw out the overtime cap, get this guy, Phil.
Yeah, 2 things I wanted to bring up. One, Bill, when you're talking about when we were in anti-crime, we would see a guy running. We called it jetting. If he was jetting, meaning he was really running and looking back, that was a guy that we wanted to stop. But if somebody was just trotting or, kind of jogging to get across the street, that's something that, you might take note of, but you realize, well, the guy's trying to catch the bus. With regard to this individual, I would love to know, and I think that this is probably something that the investigators are hot on, who gave him the information or how did he attain the information as to where Mr. Thompson was staying and where he would be going at that hour of the morning. He laid in wait. They have him clocked out there from about 5-ish in the morning, and then the shooting takes place at 6:44. So he stalked him for quite a while. How did he gain that information? That seems like something, listen, maybe on the website, perhaps the location of the meeting, and the meeting is going to take place. The conference is going to take place at that hotel. I get that. But how did he know that he was going to be coming from across the street at a different hotel? There are ways that perhaps he could have, maybe queried hotels to find out if he was staying there. But it sounds to me like he may have had information that was kind of sensitive. He had intel that maybe only people in the know would have. So I'm curious as to find that out. How did he get that information? Perhaps if he's taken into custody and he's faced with all of his time in jail and he's taken alive, maybe he will cooperate. Who knows? But that's one thing I would love to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Busher Bandaloo, city bikes are not still need a credit card to activate. Busher Bandaloo, I think we reported earlier, and I don't know if you heard this, it wasn't a city bike. That was erroneously reported by the NYPD because, let's face it, you get stuff wrong in the hustle and bustle of this investigation and all the boots on the ground, detectives coming from all over the city to work this case. Mistakes are made. All right. So yes, it was not a city bike. It was an e-bike. So where he got it from, that's anybody's guess too. Did they record?
That's actually a little bit interesting. That comment, they're saying that you don't need a credit card to rent one of those e-bikes. Is that what I'm understanding?
I think you do need a credit card.
I thought you needed either Apple Pay or some type of there had to be some type of a way to get the bike. But I guess, maybe we'll look into that. Maybe somebody could put that in the chat. But, Bill, on every case, it seems like we learned something new. I had no idea about these silencers and suppressors and the slide lock until we investigated our own selves about this case. And you played that video. That was very interesting and informative. I had no idea about that. Of course, we don't come across silencers very often. I'm sure that you could speak to that as well, Bill. And Mike,
I've never seen one in my entire police career. Never.
I've seen suppressors. I've never seen a pistol silencer, a suppressor on a rifle and stuff. There's been some homemade stuff. They take a bottle, an empty soda bottle, and they tape it around. They tape it around the barrel of the gun, and that's supposed, with a lot of tape and stuff, that's supposed to suppress some of the sound. But again, I never came across in a homicide investigation a real silencer like the one that was displayed in this case.
Danny Lee from the chat. Fox is reporting he used a fake ID and paid cash at the hostel. Danny Lee, yes, thank you. We reported that earlier. The ID was from New Jersey. I would imagine it would have to be a picture ID because an ID with no picture these days is
not an ID.
Yeah. No, it's not accepted by anyone. So he has a fake ID, and we had mentioned, what was his choice to flee New York City? Was it a bus? Was it an Uber? Could have been an Uber. Uber's like a new thing, but it's really not that new. But to us, we were a different generation of NYPD. There was no such thing as Ubers. There were yellow cabs and there were livery cabs, and yellow cabs wouldn't go past 110th Street. They would refuse to go past 110th Street because of the danger. But now an Uber, he could have just called up and got an Uber. But then, he's risking using something that could identify him, i.e., but his cell phone's probably a burner phone, right?
He may have dual cell phones, and it's not even a call. You just go onto the app, you request a car to the location, and you put in your destination that you're going to. So it's quite easy to exit the city, as you just said, Bill.
And the other way is, as Mike Aguirre said, the most likely way to be the most anonymous would be to get on a bus.
Mm-hmm.
He could bring his backpack.
Nobody's searching that. Yeah.
He could keep his mask up. He could bring his gun on the bus. No one's tossing you getting on the bus. No one's got a metal detector on the bus. And I don't know how fast they got these photos out yesterday, but he probably got the hell out of Dodge before these photos that we see now were released. They just got these photos out today. So he was probably well gone to wherever the hell he was running to before these photos came out. Professor Mike.
Yeah, Billy, he's smart and stupid at the same time. He drops the phone perhaps, and he leaves the water bottle behind. But, that's stupid. But he's smart also because the way he pre-planned putting the bike in that alleyway. He went to Central Park. Once you go into the park, you can get lost a lot more. As Bobby Chacon said, there's not nearly as much lighting and camera at that time of day. If you wanted to get rid of the gun, there's that little reservoir. I don't know what they call it. The scenic one you always see in the movies. He could have thrown it in there. I don't think he would. I think he probably feels that he wants to keep it for a little while longer. But, you could do that sort of thing. So he's smart and stupid at the same time. But he made enough critical mistakes that have given the police, a little bit of an edge in going after him. And then with the NYPD, just give the detectives one small piece of evidence and they can expand upon that. So, he's on the run. He probably has some friends. He's lying low. Even if he's a New Yorker, he's probably out of the city, out of the state. If I was him, I'd be out of the state. I'd be in the wilds of Pennsylvania, somewhere in the mountains. But that's probably what's going to happen. Once we get some more information on him, maybe through DNA, maybe through fingerprints, then he's cooked. Then it's just a matter of a few hours or a few days to hunt him down. But he's long gone, I think, from New York City. Absolutely.
Someone said in the chat that, New Yorkers don't stay in hostels. We don't think he's a New Yorker,
right?
But he has pretty good knowledge of the geographic layout of New York City. He was able to plan this. He was able to get an e-bike. He was able to lay in wait for this guy. So he knew the terrain somewhat, and he knew how to get away. So no, we're not saying he's a New Yorker because we don't think he is a New Yorker. But yet, after this occurred, we believe, as Phil said, we keep using that expression, he fled Dodge immediately. We don't believe he's in the city, but guess what? We really believe that the NYPD has him identified right now. And for whatever reason, they're not releasing that yet. They're gonna get this guy. There's no doubt. But you hear the press, and they're already almost ready to say, "It's just a cold case." They can't wait to say that. No, it's been 2 days. It's been 2 days. Investigation takes time. Good investigation takes longer time. Phil.
Yeah, let's just say that he had plans of blending in and sticking around in the city. I would think that once the media ran with those early photographs and videos, that's when he would say it's time to get out of Dodge. And I would believe, whether he's a New York resident or not, that he would leave the area. With regard to that e-bike, I believe as tourists coming into the city, you can rent one of those fairly easy. I don't think it's too difficult. Perhaps he didn't have to purchase it. And the other thing is, he was definitely familiar with New York City. There's no question about that. And the area in which he committed these acts. He was familiar with it. Was he here before? Did he come a few days earlier and recon it? or perhaps he had been here before if he's not a resident. He definitely, without a doubt, had familiarity with the area, no doubt in my mind. Like you said, Bill, he secreted that bike in the alleyway by the Ziegfeld Theater. He was able to walk around pretty freely, and he hung around in the area. And again, he knew who his victim was. He didn't, just shoot anybody that was walking into that hotel that was wearing a suit jacket. He identified who the victim was. He knew who he was ahead of time. He picked out his target. He spotted him, and then he acted for sure.
100%, Phil. Very well said. Let me play this from Fox 5.
This just in, new images just released by police of the suspect in the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. And welcome to The Noon. I'm Teresa Priolo in for Bianca Peters. As we just mentioned, these are the new images of the suspect. Police just released them. No suspects have been named, but law enforcement sources confirm with Fox 5 that they have received a number of tips. And in one of those tips, there is a name that police are looking at. All this, as police tell us, that they showed up at 2 hostels on the Upper West Side this morning. Fox 5's Haley Fixler is live outside of one of them right now. Haley, you've been on the story all morning. What are you learning at this hour?
Hey, Teresa. Well, we have heard those reports that police searched this hostel as part of the manhunt and the investigation. And within the last hour, we did see 2 investigators go inside of the building. And I did check in with the general manager at the hostel. And all he would tell me is that this is an active investigation and that they are fully cooperating with police at this time. And I want you to take one more look at these newly released photos of the suspected gunman without a mask on. Having been inside of the hostel, I can say that this does look inside of the building that we are standing outside of right now. Now, this is one of 2 hostels police stopped by as part of their investigation. Again, they stopped by the Kama Central Park hostel asking staff if they recognized a photo of the suspect. Now, this is now more than 24 hours since the shooter in all black shot and killed Brian Thompson outside of a Midtown hotel. The CEO of United Healthcare was heading into an investor meeting when the shooter came up behind him and fired his gun, hitting Thompson's back and calf. Surveillance video captured the shooter as he ran through Ziegfeld alleyway, hopped on an e-bike, and disappeared into Central Park. Investigators also found words written on each of the shell casings left behind at the scene. The words deny, defend, and depose. And we've heard reports that the parent company of United Healthcare was aware of threats against high-level executives. Thompson's wife also told NBC News he told her he was being threatened. And I want you to take a listen to what the police commissioner had to say about this attack.
And as the victim was walking to the conference hotel, the suspect approached from behind and fired several rounds, striking the victim at least once in the back and at least once in the right calf.
Now, I wanted you to look at this poster right outside of the hostel here. This is one of the reward posters. NYPD is offering up to $10,000 for any information leading up to an arrest. And of course, we are working for more information as this investigation continues. Live on the Upper West Side, Haley Fixler. Teresa, back to you.
So, that's the information we have. They checked another hostel on Central Park West. There's another one. But they confirmed that the one on West 103rd Street is the one that he stayed at. And they interviewed 2 of his roommates. He had 2 roommates that were staying with him at this 103rd Street hostel. My question is, did he leave anything behind at that hostel? Did he leave maybe a stub, a bus ticket stub, or something of his belongings behind that can lead to him? That is good evidentiary material that they could use to identify him. When he spoke, did he speak in some kind of an accent? Did he have a Spanish?
That's important, Billy. That's important because
right. Did he have a French accent?
Right. I was thinking.
So yeah, or did he have a regional accent? Yeah. I mean, look, you and I, we couldn't hide anywhere. These guys are from New York. There's no, with our accents.
Well, absolutely. So even a piece of gum or a cigarette butt or another water bottle, all of those things are going to be DNA that will lead us to the perpetrator, obviously.
Yeah, Lee Villarreal. I'm sorry, I think Villarreal is the way it's pronounced, I think. The jacket of the guy at the hostel is not the same as the one the perp has on at Starbucks. He could have changed.
Yes, exactly.
That backpack could fit clothing. He could fit a change of clothes in there. Mm-hmm. So, look, when we first came on the job in the 80s, it was very common for perps to wear 3 and 4 layers of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And as they did robberies, they would just
Killed
strip
them
off,
right off. Yeah.
first layer, and then voila, that wasn't me. I've got green pants and a white shirt. You're looking for a guy with blue pants and a gray shirt. They would just discard their clothes, and then the next robbery, same thing. And we used to laugh and say, dude, why are you wearing 5 pairs of pants? 5 shirts? And they'd be like, well,
part of the escape process.
Yeah, right? And same thing with, covering their face, which he did. He knew that. He knew to cover his face. But some of the things that he did that screamed out, not a pro, you don't go into a Starbucks before you're going to kill somebody. That was like amateur 101 written all over it. Mike.
Yeah, Billy, that's what I said. He's smart and stupid at the same time. As Bobby Chacon said, a real killer, trained killer working for a mob would not have done that. They would have picked a spot, where they knew they would probably not be on any sort of surveillance video. You're by a huge hotel in Midtown Manhattan. How many security cameras are around there? Every single Starbucks, even bodegas. So many bodegas have, security cameras. So therefore, in Midtown Manhattan, you're going to be on a camera. That was kind of crazy to think that he's going to buy, 2 power bars and a water before he does his shooting. It sounds something you could see out on a TV show. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that's happening. Thankfully, he's done those sort of things to give the police a little runway to get, the investigation going on him. But yeah, he's very dedicated. Absolutely. He's smart. He's got some help going into this project. And he knew what he was doing, but he's not a professional at this whatsoever, thankfully.
No, he's not. Bird Dog from the chat. He left DNA everywhere. That's for sure. That's for sure. Ambient police off the cuff thoughts. The backpack on in those pictures is not gray like the one the shooter had. Some of it could be
the photograph itself,
the lighting. Yeah, it could be a lot of things.
He could have had 2 backpacks, though. That's quite possible.
That's possible too. But the NYPD clearly believes.
They believe it's him.
One and the same guy that they're looking for. So I'm not actively working this investigation, and so far it seems like they're doing a great job. Exeter Line 1930. When I went to business conferences, they sent everyone professional brochures, folders, etc., with meeting times and agendas. Mm-hmm. Continental breakfast, activities check-in. Co-workers could see them. Yes. Yeah. So there's no big secrets. I don't know if they posted the itinerary on the United Healthcare website. You never know. But what we do know, for a man, Brian Thompson, a CEO whose salary, I believe, was $11 million a year. That was his salary. Why? And he was worth about $50 million. Why did he not have a security team? Coming into New York City, that's, not a stranger to crime, not a stranger to things like this happening. He really needed a security team. He had no security. He traveled with no security, and he was getting threats. In fact, there was a story that the Minnesota police had just responded to a bomb threat at his house. So he had been getting threats. And I know people have raised the specter, he's separated from his wife. Look, all of this stuff will be looked into, and as part of the long-term investigation. Could his wife have something to do with this? They're going to look into all of those things. There will be no stone left unturned. Professor Mike.
Yeah, Bill, because when you look at the way this shooting went down, the shooter had a lot of help, and he knew exactly who he was going after. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity. Mr. Thompson is a pretty solid guy, pretty solid build. And when you see that blue jacket walking down the street, that's the guy. He knew exactly who he was aiming for, and he shoots him. And therefore, and he goes down, and then he leaves, as Phil talked about. And he's clearing his automatic. He's shooting, clearing the automatic, and he keeps on walking. So this isn't a case of mistaken identity whatsoever. And he was motivated. I believe he's got a small group behind him. And most likely there's been some sort of mail or some sort of communication between this group and, United Healthcare. And the idea that you would go, even if there was no, threats whatsoever, he's the CEO. He's going to be having huge meetings with donors and stockholders and whatever that he's got going on. Not to have an administrative assistant there working with him, walking beside him, helping him through his meetings is really strange. I'm sorry, as from a lawyer's perspective, that's negligent on United Healthcare's part. Why wouldn't you have somebody there as his right-hand man, especially if there was at least one threat? I want that person, if they're not local from Minneapolis, flying in with them. I want somebody with a concealed carry permit, some security company in New York, from New York City based, meeting him at the hotel and walking next to him 24/7. It's just incredible that this sort of thing happens. Occasionally this happens and nobody thinks of it until after it's too late. But to me, I think this is very negligent on the part of United Healthcare.
Absolutely. Titanium I am. Bill, how did he write on the shell casings? I would imagine with a sharp instrument that scratches the words he
Could
wrote.
even be a Sharpie too, Bill.
I would imagine more so would be scratched in, Phil, because it's so different. Look, when we used to process a firearm, what did you use to scratch your initials on the side of the firearm, right? Yeah. So it could be a lot of those things, but titanium I would imagine he used some sharp instrument to scratch the letters into the side of the shell casings.
The only reason I said the Sharpie is because you're correct, Bill. We would put our initials on things like a bullet or a casing or something of that nature. But it would seem to get those words on a shell casing might be a little difficult. That's why I was saying that. But Bill, I don't know if you're seeing this in the chat. There's Jane C is saying CNN update. Suspect in United Healthcare CEO shooting used fake ID and traveled by bus from Atlanta. I don't know if that's true. But she's saying, Jane C is saying that that's what CNN is reporting. So, Mike, you hit the nail on the head. Last night, Billy, you hit the nail on the head and saying that when they said that they seen him up near the Frederick Douglass houses, he was probably staying at a hotel. And you hit the nail right on that. So let's see. I guess we got to see what plays out. Maybe that has been determined or released to the public. I don't know if it's correct reporting at this point.
Let me play some more of this CNN with John Miller, who was a former deputy commissioner of the NYPD.
Well, so this is a turn in the investigation. The idea that there was some thinking earlier on that he was a New Yorker because of the savvy way he moved through Midtown, stashed a e-bike, navigated through Central Park up to the Upper West Side, was seen on the Upper West Side earlier in the morning before the shooting, carrying a battery for that bike. It suggested a familiarity that suggested maybe he was a New Yorker, but the idea that he stayed in a hostel up there for 2 days in a room for 4, but there were 2 other men sleeping in there, so he stayed with 2 strangers, that may change the leaning towards someone who came from out of town and tried to stay in a place that would have a minimum number of cameras and not cost very much, and the kind of place where people don't notice people because it's very transient.
Do you know more about the timeline in terms of when these pictures were taken and this rare moment, as you said, where he put his mask down at the front desk at this hostel before the shooting? It just strikes me that he's in this picture smiling.
I don't have the precise timeline, but in that police were up there yesterday and last night. They did a search of the room. The hotel, of course, cooperated with them and got these, the hostel rather, got these images. It suggests he was probably there Tuesday and Wednesday, but give or take a day. That's something investigators know. We have people up there now talking to them, and something we'll know soon, but it appears to be very recent.
What do police do in this situation, John, when, it's been more than 24 hours, he's still on the loose, he could very well be outside of New York City and beyond? I mean, how far do they cast the net at this point looking for him?
Well, I mean, the real net is global, which is he could have gone to Kennedy Airport, got on a flight, and be anywhere in the world right now, which is another reason to release these photos, which show the face. But I think the current thinking is he came in from outside New York, stayed at this transient location, did the job he came for, and is probably back where he came from, which is yet another reason to put these photos out. Because is he from Minnesota, where United Health is headquartered? Is he from Montana or Nebraska or somewhere that has nothing to do with this? Or is he from, Pennsylvania? That's the wild card. And this may help spur that in terms of the crowdsourcing from the public.
Quickly, John, given all of your experience in law enforcement, how quickly, typically, after pictures like this that are pretty clear of his face come out, do you hear from someone who knows the person?
Usually very quickly. I think of the last couple of serial killer cases that I was involved in the NYPD, where we finally got a full face shot with good lighting. And within hours of putting that out, we had people calling in saying, I know who that is. I'm pretty confident that this will work. When you look at that image, if you know him, you'll know him.
Yeah, it's true. Well, certainly we hope so. And it's so important for the public to help and to reach out to authorities as he is still on the loose after killing this United Healthcare CEO on the streets of Manhattan. John Miller, thank you so much.
I think that they also, it's easy to say, but the FBI keeps track of subversive organizations. And I think, obviously, I think the NYPD, there's always joint NYPD, FBI this, joint FBI, NYPD that. They're going to enlist the NYPD in this investigation. What do you got on subversive groups that are anti-healthcare companies? And they may be able to identify him through that way, or identify associates or possibly people that helped him or continuing to help him avoid capture. Phil.
Yeah, I think that I had a conversation with a colleague earlier today, and he was indicating to me that he didn't think this was the perpetrator's first rodeo, meaning that maybe this wasn't the first time that he killed. And I do believe that there's some validity to that. Perhaps he does have a violent past that he built to this. And what you're talking about, if there is some type of a database in the FBI or in the federal system where they monitor these groups, and perhaps this person was at some type of a rally or a protest, became violent, hurled a rock or a bottle or something of that nature, or made threats via email, text message, or written letters, they could possibly identify the perpetrator through that means. But I would almost be certain that the NYPD did try to access the FBI for information regarding any anti-health insurance company groups that are anti-health insurance companies, specifically this United Healthcare Insurance Company, or even perhaps the victim, targeting the victim himself. Was there? We know there may have been a bomb threat. There was also a suspicious person at the outside the victim's home back in 2018. What happened in between that time? Were there other things? And there has to be a security division of United Healthcare that is going to have investigations ongoing. Usually they're former law enforcement officers. Someone gets a threat or something happens, or there's someone that behaves badly within the company and they have to investigate it. So they're going to NYPD is going to contact them, to the security division of that company, and say, what do you got on threats? What do you got? Was there anybody that wanted to make threats or bring harm to Brian Thompson? Things of that nature.
Absolutely. Jane C. from the chat, thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. Much appreciated. Ambient and stuff. Police off the cuff thoughts. The backpack on in those pictures is not gray like the one the shooter had. He could have two backpacks. He absolutely could. Because that is one of the things that's highly identifiable as you see him on the street, as you see him on the bike. And the backpack could be what gets him ID'd traveling on public transportation or a bus, or if he tries to get on an airplane, which we think that's a big risk. Mike,
Billy, if you have experience, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if you have experience with security cameras, I have security cameras on the monitors right behind me in my home. And from day to night, clothing description definitely changes in the video. So they're taking a picture from video. It could very well be that. It could be the same backpack. Maybe it looks like a different color, depending on a daytime video as opposed to a nighttime video, or a lighting difference. So it may be two backpacks, or it could be the same one, just looks different in that photo that we're seeing.
Absolutely. Busha Bandaloo, the NSA has a system that was linked with all DMV. They use it to scan images in public to find people, how they found January 6 people. They can use this tech to find the face and address of the guy. Look, Busha Bandaloo, thank you for that. I think they will be pulling out all stops and using all technology possible to capture this guy. Robbie from the chat, I think this shooter works for United Health. The CEO owns $15 million a year. The shooter's message was the poor killing the rich, disgruntled employee, I believe.
Very possible.
It could be. It could be. There's no, look, we're not going to act like we have a crystal ball and know who this is. I believe the NYPD has him ID'd. I really believe that at this
I agree,
point.
Billy, 100%. They know who he is at this point. And if they do, they're probably doing a deep dive into him, whether he's got a criminal record or not. There's ways of looking into the person's background. And the other thing is, and I brought this up several times already, sensitive information that he has. So when that person is talking about perhaps he worked for the company or knows someone that works for the company, the itinerary that other person in the chat was talking about, when you get an itinerary, it's not going to say, well, the CEO of the company is not staying at the hotel where the conference is. He's staying at the hotel across the street. He knew that information. He knew to be waiting outside the location, or else he probably would have taken up a spot maybe closer to the front door of the location or inside the location. He had sensitive information. So that's one of the things that's really sticking in my core that I want to know the answer to.
Phil, bad guys have intel here. Folks, if you're in the chat, I see a lot of new names in the chat. Just hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. And absolutely hit that like button. You know, guys, there's a lot is happening in this case. And as we say, in the world we live in, everyone wants immediate gratification. Everyone's saying day 2, why don't they have him yet? You know, because simply investigation takes time. It's not like NYPD Blue, you know, it's not like, all these police shows you see on, they press that easy button. This thing, all these things take time. That's why they used to call detectives gumshoes, because they used to have to wear these shoes and wear them out, walking and knocking on doors. And there's a lot of that going on in this investigation.
100%.
I'm going to go around and look, just be sure, we'll be confident that the NYPD is going to solve this case. They're going to get this guy. Like John Miller said, this photo doesn't belong going out nationally. It has to go out internationally, because he could be from anywhere. That's why I was really questioning when he spoke, what kind of accent did he have? That could sort of tell us potentially where he's from. Professor Mike, I'm going to start with you. Your final thoughts.
Final thought. This is the pictures are excellent. Maybe they're not the quality that you need to put into a facial recognition software program and get a match. But as John Miller said, if you know this guy, you know that you know him from that picture. And I was thinking back towards the Boston Marathon bombing, when the FBI and the Boston police were arguing over, are they going to release any sort of video? And sure enough, they got a lot of video from people at that Boston Marathon, and within like a few hours, they were getting hits on the Sarnia brothers. People were calling up, and so that's how quickly this can happen. So this probably will not be, an 18-month long, dragnet across the country, but this guy could be in another state, and if I was him, I would be in another state, and I'd be up in the Allegheny Mountains in Pennsylvania somewhere, hiding in a cabin, because no stone is going to be unturned, and he's going to have a lot of people who may have been friends, but who are going to be tempted by that $10,000 reward, that 1-800, tips number. And that's the best thing, that phone number and that image. And so I think we should be really confident that the police know exactly what they're doing, and they're going to close in on this guy. It might take a little time, but he is very dangerous. and they're going to do a very thorough job like they've been doing already.
100%. And off the air, Phil said to me, you know something, why hasn't United Healthcare thrown in $50,000 or $100,000 into this as the reward? And you know something, as time goes on, if time goes on and he's not apprehended, that may be when they should loosen up their pockets and add 50 or 100K to this reward. So it makes someone who might be reluctant to tell who this guy is to, I want that 100 grand. Phil, your final thoughts, Phil.
Billy, money talks. I was going to bring that up in my final closing thoughts. The company should be putting up a large reward for the arrest of this perpetrator. A couple of quick shout outs. I was asked to come on Banfield's show. That's on News Nation at the 10 p.m. hour. They said this first segment. So if you wanted to catch me on that, I'll be on at 10 p.m. on News Nation. Second thing was, I'm not sure if the Pranzos were in the chat tonight, but I got a Christmas card from them, Peter and Richella Pranzo. They're great supporters of the show. Shout out to them. And with regard to the victim in this case, you know, if you look at the chat on social media today, there was a lot of anti-health insurance companies, a lot of comments, negativity. Negative towards these companies, negative towards the victim in this case. Let's face it, he did not deserve what he get. Children aren't going to have their father home for Christmas. A wife isn't going to have a husband, a brother, a son. So if you have a beef with these insurance companies, there's other ways to try and make your voice be heard, whether it be a protest, a rally, a letter writing campaign, whatever it is. Violence is not the answer, and it never is. It's unacceptable. With that, I would say just keep this victim's family in your thoughts and prayers.
Well said, Phil. Heather, whatever, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. At this point in the show, I just want to thank all the new faces, all the new names I see in the chat. We are Police Off the Cuff. We really pride ourselves in being true crime from a police perspective. And you see, we have some great co-hosts tonight. Phil Grimaldi, retired detective from straight out of Brooklyn. And we got Professor Mike. Really, Mike worked in the 4-4 precinct back in the day, you know, when it was really crazy. And that's why he became a mild-mannered professor, because he
did a great job on the fingerprint technology symposium that he gave earlier. You did good on that, Mike. You enlightened me on a few things, so that was impressive.
He absolutely did. And folks, I want to thank you all for coming in, and just be confident. The NYPD is going to make an arrest on this. We're going to have this guy, and I guarantee it. And as more leads come in, more information comes in, Police Off the Cuff will be right on top of it. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Have a great night, and God bless everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.